Welcome to this Easy Spreadsheets for Life video tutorial. In this video, I will explain everything you need to know to get started with your new spreadsheet. This tutorial applies to our 50-30-20 annual budget series, which includes the Easy 50-30-20 annual budget, the 50-30-20 annual budget plus, and the 50-30-20 annual budget max. The Easy 50-30-20 annual budget has 17 tabs, which include instructions, setup, accounts, a bill calendar, a dashboard, and then 12 monthly tabs. The 50-30-20 Annual Budget Plus includes everything in the Easy and also a savings tracker, the debt payoff calculator, and a budget forecast tab. The 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max includes everything in the Plus and also the net worth tracker and the money challenge. So in this video, I will go through the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max because it includes all tabs, so no matter which spreadsheet you purchased, you'll learn about every tab in your spreadsheet. All right, let's move on to the spreadsheet. The 50-30-20 budget is a popular and effective budgeting strategy that simplifies your finances by having only 3 main categories. Each number in the title represents a percentage of your income. So the first main category is needs, which is all of your essential expenses and should account for 50% of your total income. This could include your mortgage or rent, groceries, fuel for your vehicles, utilities, insurance, etc. Anything that you must spend money on throughout the month for daily living. Then the second main category is wants, which is any expense that is optional and should take up about 30% of your total income. So this could be dining out, entertainment, vacations, monthly subscriptions, etc. Most of the time, the difference between needs and wants will be obvious, but sometimes you'll need to decide for yourself which subcategory goes into which table. The third main category is debt payments and savings, both considered expenses for future financial security, and this should account for the last 20% of your income. Sticking to this percentage breakdown is really a matter of personal preference and circumstances, but many find that it does work well with their money management and ensures all financial goals are being included. Okay, let's start here with the Instructions tab. At the top, there are links for contacting us, the Frequently Asked Questions page on our site, the Tips and Tricks page also on our site, and then there's a link to this instructional video. Below the buttons is an important Read First section, and we highly recommend making a copy of your spreadsheet before you enter any data. This will give you an unused original version that you can copy from if you ever happen to delete or break any formulas. If you don't make a copy, or perhaps you can't find the copy you made, you can always go back to your Etsy account and download the file again. As we scroll down, you'll find a basic 3-step tutorial on how to get started with your spreadsheet, as well as other tabs that may be included. If you're familiar with Google Sheets and feel comfortable jumping right in, then this page is probably all you'll need to get up and running. Okay, next is the Setup tab. The Setup tab is where you'll enter information that will automatically apply to all 12 monthly tabs. This would be your preferred currency, which I'm going to use the dollar, the budget year, so I'll go with the current year, 2024, and then the starting month, which I'm going to start in June. You can start in any month that you like. Then down here, you'll enter all of the information for each of your main categories. So the main categories, again, include income, needs, wants, debt, and savings. So even though debt and savings are combined to equal 20% of your income, here there are separate categories for budget purposes. And then you'll see here at the top how many entries you can make in each one. So all subcategories need at least a name entered in the Setup tab. If your budget stays pretty consistent, you should also enter your projected budgeted amounts for each one here, because this number will auto-populate in each of the monthly tabs, so you don't have to enter them every month. However, if you want to manually change the budget amounts in each monthly tab, you can do that, and I'll show you how a little bit later. Also, all main category tables have an additional column for a payday or a due date. Again, you can enter that here, which will auto-populate all the monthly tabs, or you can enter them manually each month. Any category with a due date will show up on the bill calendar. And if you're brand new to Google Sheets, it's helpful to know that your entries are automatically saved to your Google Drive, so there's no Save button to click before moving on. So I'll go ahead and add some examples and show you how the Setup tab works. Okay, now that we have our categories set up, we'll take a look at the Accounts tab. The Accounts tab is where you will set up your accounts and review various totals for each account. This tab does pull data from all monthly tabs in order to calculate new totals based on your most recent updates. So you would simply scroll down to the Account Setup and Overview table, where you will enter account names, the type of account, and then any starting balance. And then you'll also notice that there are these colored cells, and then there are white cells. You'll notice this on every tab. The colored cells have formulas in them and should not be edited. The white cells are where you will make your entries. So anywhere you see a cell with a colored background, you know not to type in those cells. But don't worry about accidentally deleting or editing a formula cell because the spreadsheets are protected, and if you type into a colored cell, you'll see a warning message that will either allow you to back out or move forward with editing the cell. For example, I get this warning message and I can just hit cancel. Okay, I'll go ahead and enter a few accounts. Once you have your accounts entered, the spreadsheet will calculate some totals over here on the right. And then you can begin using the other features on this tab, so let's take a look at those next. Just scrolling down, we find the Balance by Date table, where you can search up to 5 accounts to find totals between 2 dates. Now, since we haven't entered any transactions in the monthly tabs yet, we don't have any data to search. So we'll come back to this tool after we've entered some transactions a little bit later. And then just below that, you'll see the Adjustments table and the Transfers table. These allow you to make any adjustments or transfers with the accounts that you listed above. If you find that you're unable to balance an account according to your bank statement, you can make an adjustment here in the Adjustments table. Just enter the date of the adjustment, the type of adjustment, whether you're depositing or withdrawing, and then the account you're making the adjustment on, and we'll say $15. Over here in the Transfers table, you can enter transfers between any 2 accounts that you listed above. Just enter the date of the transfer, the account you're transferring from, and then the account you're transferring to, and then the transfer amount. The Overview table above will calculate all adjustments and transfers into your account balances for you. And then up here at the top, you'll see a pie graph that breaks down all of your account balances, as well as these totals here on the left. Okay, next we'll look at the monthly tabs, and because I selected June in the Setup tab, I'll go to June. So the first table in the monthly tabs is this monthly breakdown. The goal column is the only column you'll make an entry, and these are the percentages you want to use for your budget breakdown. The default is 50, 30, 20, but you can change that to any percentages you like as long as they add up to 100%. The planned and actual columns will calculate what percentages you're at based on the data you've already entered. So once you set your budgeted amounts for each subcategory, you can look here to see how close you are to your goal percentage. And the same goes with the actual column. Once you start entering actual amounts, this column will update with the current percentage you're at. And just remember that debt and savings are one category when calculating the percentage of income, but they have separate tables in the spreadsheet for transactions and totals. There is a monthly breakdown table in every monthly tab, so you can even change these percentages every month if you like. The next thing we'll look at are these main category tables here on the left side. We can see that they all have the budgeted amounts that were entered in the Setup tab, and then you'll also see the subcategories and any dates that were added. The income table will auto-populate the income sources and paydays, and then your budgeted amounts, but you will enter the actual amounts as you receive your income, and then also select which account that income is being deposited into. And then you'll notice that the rest of the category tables have no white cells. Again, the colored cells have formulas and do the calculations for you. So these category tables require no input. They pull all data from the transaction log that's here in the middle, where you will enter all outgoing expenses. You would simply enter the date of the transaction, the amount, select the main category and then the subcategory, and then select which account is being used, and then optionally a description at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and make some entries, and you can see how the spreadsheet works and how the graphs and progress bars are updated. Okay, now that we've got our transactions and our June income entered, you'll see that the actual columns in the category tables have been updated, as well as how much I am over or under the budgeted amount. Also, you have the option to check this box on the left when a bill has been paid. When a box is checked, that transaction will show up with a line through it on the bill calendar as long as you've entered a due date. So I'll go ahead and check a few so you can see how they show up when we go over the bill calendar a little later. So I had mentioned previously that you do have the option to change your budgeted amounts in the monthly tabs, even though these are colored cells with formulas. The formula is there for consistency and automation, but if your budgeted amounts with certain subcategories tend to fluctuate, then you can change these amounts manually when necessary. So you will see the warning message that we saw earlier for a protected cell, but all you have to do is click OK to bypass the protection. So let me just show you an example. Let's say our mortgage bill was not $1,700, it was $1,800 this month, so I'll just change that to $1,800, hit enter. I'll see the message and I can click OK, and the change has been made. And I could also change any payday or due date in the monthly tabs, and this new due date will show up in the bill calendar. If you want to add or change any subcategory names, then you'll need to go back to the Setup tab and make those edits there. Okay, let's go over the different sections in the spreadsheet. At the top, you'll see 3 progress bars that reflect how much you've used so far for the month for these main categories. So here we can see that I've already spent $2,680 on my needs category, and this accounts for 58% of my goal, which I can see down here in the cash flow table. So these progress bars are just a quick and convenient way to see where you're at in your overall budget. And then below that, there are 4 graphs. The first is a daily spending tracker, which graphs how much you spend each day in the selected month. And then next is a pie chart. This breaks down the main spending categories by percentage of the total actual amount of all 4 categories. So if we added up all of the actual amounts for these 4 categories, we would find that needs would be 55.6 of that total. So you can also click on the graph and hover over any elements to see more details. And next we have a graph which compares goal versus budgeted versus actual amounts for the month. And then lastly over here, a pie chart that breaks down your current balance and actual spending. Okay, let's go to the cash flow summary. This table is completely automated and it just gives you a quick snapshot to help you see where you're at in your monthly budget. Now, because this spreadsheet has the capability to track multiple accounts, there is no rollover balance like in other spreadsheets that we offer. If you want to check the balance of an account, you would just refer to the Accounts tab. And again, the goal column will calculate your percentage breakdown based on the values you entered in the breakdown table. So in this example, we have 50, 30, 20 up here, so needs would be 50% of our total budgeted income. And the goal income will always equal the planned or budgeted income. Likewise, wants would be 30% of the income, and debt and savings would be 20%. And then here in the planned column, you can quickly see how your budgeted amounts align with your goal amounts, and also see how your actual amounts compare. This table bases calculations on your total income, despite which account that income is being deposited into. So to see the balance of individual accounts, again, just refer back to the Accounts tab. Okay, moving over to the right, we'll see this pie chart, which is a visual representation of your top 10 largest spending amounts so far for the month. And then the chart is generated by this table just below it, which lists all spending transactions in order from largest to smallest. And then scrolling down, we'll find the table that generates the daily spending graph we saw at the top. And then you can review the data here in text form. And then towards the bottom, there are 3 areas where you can use space for a to-do list. We have space for money goals, and then there's an area for notes. And that is how all the monthly tabs work, because they're all set up and work the same. The last thing I want to mention is what to do with the monthly tabs that you don't use. Perhaps you start your budget in May of this year. You can hide all of the monthly tabs before May without compromising any functions, and just to make your space easier to navigate. All you have to do is click on the down arrow of a tab that you want to hide. So I'll choose April, and I'll select Hide Sheet. Hit OK, and now April is gone. The tab and all of its data is still there, it's just hidden. All you have to do to show the tab again is go up to the top menu, click View, Hidden Sheets, and then show the one you want to unhide. Click OK, and then there it is. Now, for the sake of this video, I have already added entries to July and August, just so you can get a good idea of what the dashboard can do when you have more data. But before we go there, let me just show you quickly the Balance by Date tool in the Accounts tab. Alright, so you would just scroll down to the Balance by Date table, and then select the account that you want to review. Then you would add 2 dates, a from date and then a to date. And the spreadsheet will compute all of these totals for you. It'll compute the starting balance at the beginning of your from date, the total number of deposits, total amount, the total amount of withdrawals, adjustments, and transfers between the 2 dates, and then the ending balance at the end of the second date. All right, let's head over to the dashboard. The annual dashboard is completely automated and requires no input. It pulls all the data from the monthly tabs and then automatically updates every field and graph, so you always see the most updated version of your budget. Up here at the top, you'll see 4 totals, which are the annual accumulated totals for the main categories so far. And then just below that, you'll see the annual cash flow summary along with these 3 graphs. In the summary table, these amounts here in the goal and budget column reflect the annual totals for each of the main categories. So when you add up your budgeted income for all 12 months, then that would be the total here in the budget column. And again, the goal column just breaks down this income into these percentages. So that is the goal you're shooting for each of these 3 categories, while the budget and actual columns add up the amounts that you've entered in the various category tables. Of course, the actual amounts will continue to increase as you keep adding entries to each monthly tab. So next you'll see a bar graph which compares the budgeted and current amounts for each category in the cash flow summary table. The budgeted amounts are gray and the current is yellow. Then the second graph compares your actual income with your actual spending. And then the last graph in this row is a bar graph that breaks down your top 10 highest spending subcategories so far for the year. And again, you can click on the graph, any of these, and then hover your cursor over any element to see more information. All right, next you'll see the 5 main categories with totals for each month. And then over here on the right, a list of your top 30 spending subcategories, which includes the total amount for the year so far, and then the percentage of total spending. And then over here is a bar graph that breaks down your income by month. And then under those tables, there are 6 circle graphs, which show you the percentage you've already entered so far for each main category's budgeted amount. So, for example, let's look at needs. We can see that 28.6% of the total annual budgeted amount has already been used, and that equals this amount right here. So that means there is this amount left and this percentage remaining. And then last on this tab are tables that break down subcategories and amounts by month, with the running annual total here at the end, along with the monthly average of all entries so far. So I know that's a lot of data on this tab, and it's all automated. So it's just a great way to see the big picture of your annual budget, how well you're staying on track, and where you may need to cut spending. Okay, let's move on to the bill calendar. This tab only requires one entry, which is the year. So typically you'll want to enter the same year you entered in the Setup tab, but occasionally you may want to check a different year. All you'd need to do is click above to this year field, and I'm going to just change it to 2025. And then the entire calendar will update. So let me just go back to 2024. And of course, I want to point out that if there's no due date in any of the monthly tabs or the setup tab, it's not going to show up on the calendar. You must have a due date entered for the subcategory to show up on the bill calendar. So all paydays are highlighted in green, and then the bills are in red. And you'll see for the current budget year that any bill that's already been checked as paid will be lined out. So let's go down to June, because I had checked these as being paid, and they are lined out. So each date can hold up to 10 entries. If you see any date with a ref error, this means Google Sheets is saying there are too many entries for the space provided. If you have more than 10 entries for any date, you just need to add more rows, and then you can see all of the entries. For example, here on the 5th, we have this ref error. So I would need to add more rows to this date in order to see all the bills. So I'll just go over here to the left, click on any row that falls in this area. I'll just go right in the middle, and then right click, and you can insert a row above or below, it doesn't matter. And now we can see all of them. Now, of course, if I go up here, I'm going to have this ref error again, so I would need to add a row. Okay, let's go next to the Debt Payoff Calculator. The Debt Payoff Calculator is included in the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Plus and the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max. Now this tab is completely independent of all the other tabs except for the preferred currency you entered in the Setup tab. This tab is totally optional, and the rest of the spreadsheet will function properly even if you decide not to use it. The Debt Payoff Calculator is a tool that will calculate a payoff plan for you based on the debt snowball, avalanche, or custom method. Now the debt snowball method will prioritize your lowest debt balances first, while the avalanche focuses on paying off balances with the highest interest first. And then the custom method will prioritize your debt payoff by the order in which you enter your debt account information. So whichever one you choose, the calculator will give you a debt payoff plan, an amortization schedule for up to 30 years, and then your debt-free date if you make every payment. So here in the top left corner, you would just enter the date you want to start your payoff plan. So I'm just going to say June 1st. And then you would enter any additional initial payment that you might be able to apply for the very first payment. If you don't have anything, you would just hit 0, but I'm going to enter $500. And then you're going to enter any additional ongoing monthly payment that you can add to the minimum payments every month. So here I'm going to add $100 to my minimum payments every month. And then you choose your payoff strategy. So I'm just going to choose Avalanche. Then in this debt overview table, you'll enter the information for each debt balance. So this includes the debt name, the starting balance, the minimum monthly payment, and then the annual interest rate. So as you enter this information, the rest of the spreadsheet will calculate the order and amount of payments and the debt payoff date here in this last column. So I'll go ahead and add some examples so you can see how the spreadsheet works. So as you can see to the right of the table, there are these three graphs The first is a bar graph representing all of your starting balances. And then the second shows you how your total balance is going to be paid off over time. And then the third is a pie chart that breaks down your current balances. And then down here, you'll find a debt balance summary table, which tells you the current total balance, the current interest fee payment, and then the total planned payment across all balances for every month of your payoff schedule. And then next to the debt balance summary table, there are tables for up to 25 debt balances. So at the top of each individual table, you'll see the debt account name and the payoff date. And then below that, you'll find your monthly planned payment, the interest fee, and then the remaining balance. So you'll notice that these values up here are grayed out, and that's because this payment was for June and July, and actually today is August 1st. So all past payments will be grayed out. The only other information you would add to this spreadsheet is any adjustments to your payments, and that's what this white column is for. So let's say you want to add an extra $50 to the August payment. I would just click in this white field and type in 50, and then the entire remaining portion of the plan will update. However, if you decide to pay less than the scheduled payment, or if you skip a payment, then you would enter that amount as a negative number. For example, if I had to skip the August payment, in here I would just enter a negative 200. Now you can change and update all of these white fields up here in the top left and the overview table whenever you want. You can enter different values and choose a different strategy to see which one suits your circumstances the best. All cells will update the entire spreadsheet automatically, except for any entries in the adjustment column. If you make changes to your payoff schedule after you've entered any adjustments, then you'll need to delete those adjustments because those are not included in the updating calculations. And lastly, let's just scroll up to the top. You'll see these totals for current debt and total monthly payment, total interest payment, total number of payments, and then here on the right is your debt freedom date. Okay, let's move on to the savings tracker. The savings tracker is included in the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Plus and the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max. Again, the savings tracker is not connected to or synced with any other tab in the annual budget spreadsheet. It only pulls in the currency symbol that you entered in the Setup tab. It's completely independent and optional, but still a great tool to help you achieve your saving goals. So first you're going to fill out this saving funds overview table with names for each saving fund, set a goal date and a goal amount, and then enter any starting balance you may already have. If it's 0, just enter 0. So I'll go ahead and enter a few funds. So as you can see, once I've entered a few funds, all of these colored columns over here will update automatically. So once this table is set up, all you have to do is enter your contributions down here in the saving transaction log. So you'll just enter the date of the transaction, then choose from the list of saving fund names that you listed above, and then check the type of transaction, whether it's a deposit or a withdrawal, because there are times you may need to pull out some money from savings, and you want to make sure your balance is updated appropriately. And then here on the end, you can add a note if you like. So you'll notice here a deposit to your savings fund will be in a white cell, and it will be added to the savings balance. And then any withdrawals will be in this pale red cell, and those will be deducted from the balance. So now that I've added some transactions, we can see that as you deposit and withdraw from your saving funds, your total deposits, total saved, amount left to goal, your current status, the days left to reach your goal, and then this progress percentage bar to the right, those will all update automatically. Next, let's go over to the Net Worth tab, which is included in the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max. The net worth tracker allows you to enter your assets and liabilities to calculate several values, which you can quickly review up here at the top of the spreadsheet once we enter some data. So first you'll enter a goal amount and a goal date. Then you'll scroll down to the Assets Overview table and make your entries for all assets. The Asset Overview table is divided into various sections to help you organize your assets efficiently. So you'll list your assets in the appropriate category over here in the left column, and then you would enter the current value or starting balance. And then each month you'll track your assets by entering updated amounts in each monthly column. And then the table will calculate a year-to-date difference over here on the right, as well as a growth percentage. So I'll go ahead and make some entries. And then for liabilities, just scroll down to the Liabilities Overview table and enter the data in the same way. So as you enter these amounts, you'll scroll up here to the Net Worth Overview table and see that it has already updated, and then these graphs have also generated. Now this graph over here is an area graph and requires more than one set of data to generate. So I'm going to go ahead and add some updates to January so you can see how that works. Okay, let's scroll back up and we'll see that the January column in the Net Worth Overview table has updated, as well as the area graph over here to the right. Now this middle graph is actually a toggle graph. You just select this little down arrow and you can toggle between your assets and your liabilities. And then again here at the top you can see all these totals have updated. Okay, next is the budget forecast, which is also included in the 50-30-20 annual budget max. The budget forecast calculator will give you a 52-week forecast of your budgeted amounts, so what you plan to receive and spend over an entire year. The first entry you'll make is the date that you want to start the forecast. So here I'm going to enter, let's see, September 1st. And here's a tip. If there's a cell that already has a date in it, you can double click on the cell and Google Sheets will pop up this calendar. And that's just another way that you can enter a date. Then you'll need to enter a starting balance down here, and I'm going to enter $500. So once those two values are in place, I'll start picking the subcategories I want to forecast over here in this left column. To keep your forecast as flexible as possible, these are fields that you will choose manually instead of being auto-populated. So here in Income, you can select any income source from those that you listed in the Setup tab. And the same with the other categories as well. Along with the subcategories, you'll enter a budgeted amount for each, a repeat value, and then the period of the repeat. Then the last entry you'll make is a base date. So I'll go ahead and make some entries and then I'll explain how the forecast is generated. Okay, so let's just scroll back up and we can see that there's this header up here for the columns. Now the category and amount we went over. The repeat value works together with the period in order to create a pattern of repetition. So the repeat number indicates how many of the selected period will pass before the next repeat. For example, here I've selected a repeat of 28 and the period is a day. So my forecast will repeat this income source once every 28 days, which equals 4 weeks. The calculator will start from this base date that I entered. So many bills are monthly, so you would choose a repeat value of 1 and then a month period. And this means the bill will repeat once every month. Now for the base date, I highly suggest that you don't choose a date beyond the 28th. Because you may miss dates in certain months just because February is the shortest date. So just one more example, if say you had an expense that occurred daily, then you would select a repeat of 1 and a day period. In other words, that expense would repeat every 1 day. So once all of your entries over here are complete, you can scroll to the right to see what your forecast looks like. On any given day, you can check which income and expenses will apply for that day, as well as the beginning balance up here at the top. And then scrolling down, you'll find the ending balance for the day at the bottom. So having a column for all 365 days in a year makes this spreadsheet pretty long, as you can see. So I've made a way to hide entire months with just one click. All you have to do is go up to the top, and above these column letters, you'll see this long line with a box to minus sign at the end. Just click the box to minus sign, hit OK, and a whole month has been hidden. So if you want to hide multiple months, just click the minus sign and see your forecast starts on these dates now, about every 30 days. And to expand the columns, you just have to click the plus sign again. Okay, the last tab we're going to look at is the Challenge tab, which is included in the 50-30-20 Annual Budget Max. So this is a tool to challenge you to save more money. Unlike some of the tabs that we looked at previously, the Challenge tab does pull data from the Setup and Monthly tabs. So the first section at the top will count how many no-spend days you have in each month for the categories that you choose here at the top. So, for example, if you want to see how many days in the month you didn't spend money on, let's see, wants, all you would do is click that option, and the table would update. You must check at least one category in order for the table to do any calculations. Then to the right, you can optionally add a savings goal for the year. So for this example, I'm just going to enter $5,000. And then down here in the monthly table, just type in the number of no-spend days that you want to achieve for any given month. So let's pretend that it's actually May, and I want to add a no-spend goal for next month, which is June, and then July and August. So I'm going to try to not spend money on the wants categories for, let's say, 20 days, and then July will be 25, and then August, I'll say 28. So over the course of the month, the spreadsheet will populate each date with an X, which represents no spending, or a $sign, which represents any spending in that category for that day. And then you can see that this whole area up here is grayed out, and that's just because we selected June as our starting month in the Setup tab. So any dates before the selected starting month will be grayed out because there's no data for those months. And then we also see all cells below August are blank, and that's because the current month is August and we don't yet have data for the future months. And then this table just to the right will add up the number of no spend days for the month that you had, and then give you some progress stats based on your goal that you entered over here. It'll also tell you the maximum number of days that you went without spending in that category, and then the actual total spent in the category for that month. And then here on the end, this is totally optional. You can add how much you believe you saved by taking the challenge. So for example, let's say June is over, and I'm going to estimate that I saved $200 in June, and let's see, $150 in July. And so these values here are summed up and entered in this table up here. And then it tells you how much you have left to go to reach your goal. In addition to this 12-month money challenge, you also have available 2 expense challenges and 2 custom challenges. So let's go back to this first expense challenge. What you would do is you would click this down arrow and select any of these spending subcategories that you had listed in the setup table. So for this example, I'm going to choose dining out. And then this table will update. Over here, I'm going to add the average spend amount. How much do I spend on average every time I dine out? And I'm going to estimate about $35. And I'm going to say I dine out, about maybe 10 times a month. And then just like the section above, when the month starts, you would enter your no spend goal here. So I'm just going to say 28, maybe 30, and then for August, 30. And again, this table here to the right will auto-populate and calculate the data from the entries you've made in the monthly tabs. Also, you can add an estimate of what you saved by taking the challenge. Next, there are two custom challenge tables. So these last two sections work just like the first two expense challenges above, except you will type in your own challenge name and then manually enter an X for every no spend day. So these cells here have no formulas in them. So for example, I could just click on here and I'm going to type in alcohol. I don't want to spend money on alcohol. Usually when I go out, I'll spend $10, and I would say maybe 10 times a month. And then I would come down here to this monthly table. Let's say my no spend goal is 30. And then each day I would just add an X every time I don't spend money on alcohol. And this is very important. You must enter an uppercase X for these calculations to happen over here. So you have three different ways that you can challenge yourself to save more money. And that is the end of this tutorial. If you still have any questions, you can go back to the Instructions tab and choose one of these links at the top. There's a few different ways you can find additional support, including the FAQ and tips and tricks page on our website, as well as contacting us directly through our Etsy shop. Thank you again for choosing Easy Spreadsheets for Life, and I wish you all the best in your budgeting goals.